No way the Houston Rockets do this, as a new NBA mock trade has the Rockets acquiring one of the best defenders in the NBA and pairing him up with Amen Thompson. Find out the details of this trade and all the latest in today's Rockets Digest. Welcome in, I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you joining us. Before we get going, Spurs Digest has challenged us today. They said there's no way we're reaching 1,800 subscribers by the end of today. I told them H-Town has my back. We're going to prove why we are not only the best team in Texas, we're also the best digest channel in Texas. So do me a favor, we're 30 subscribers away. Go down there, hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. Let's talk about it today. Here's the headline. Rockets acquire arguably the best defender in the NBA in the latest projected trade. Now I take a step back and say that Amen Thompson is the best defender in my mind in the NBA, so, whatever to that. However, this guy is pretty darn good too. We're going to start, though, with the basics of this report and kind of talking about some backstory and before we move into the actual trade. Now, I'm going to butcher his name, but Sim Yulbolian of House of Houston said this, quote, "The Rockets already have talented young players with upside who they can't find enough playing time for. Considering that they have another lottery pick coming up in 2025, they have to swing big and revamp the roster," end quote. Now, this has been a topic for the entire offseason. The Rockets have a lottery pick at number 10. If they keep it, there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed on this upcoming season. So why not make a trade? Why not make something big happen and try and make yourself I'm not going to say they're not a contending team right now with the roster they have, but maybe increase their chances is probably the right word in that. So going out, making a trade, trying to make a move in some ways. And we've talked about how Rafael has said he likes this team, but at the same time, you got to understand you are a very, very marketable team in terms of getting trade pieces. So let's continue on in this report, again from House of Houston, saying, quote, "One way they can shake things up is by trading multiple players for one. In one mock trade scenario, the Rockets do exactly that while adding arguably the best defensive player in the league," end quote. Now, it's arguably for a couple different reasons. However, I'm going to show the defensive rating of this player and the defensive rating of Amen Thompson, and not going to lie, defensive rating for this player is definitely better than Amen Thompson. So, I mean, there is that for something to put. But I've made y'all wait long enough. Let's go look at this trade here. The Houston Rockets would acquire OG Anunoby from the New York Knicks, plus 2 second-round picks, whereas the New York Knicks would acquire Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., and Aaron Holiday. Now, a couple of things to break down here and talking about this trade. OG Anunoby is a spectacular defender, nothing on that. However, I do like Jabari Smith Jr. I think he is a good player. I know that he lost his starting spot this year to Amen Thompson, but I like him being the sixth man off the bench, and especially with the injuries that occurred this past season with Houston, Jabari was a very good player off the bench, and in the playoffs he really shined when his name was called. So he's going to be the one that I'm like maybe saying, I don't know about that. Dillon Brooks, you know my opinion. I think Dillon Brooks is a good player. I don't think he is a part of the future of this team. In terms of the players that the Rockets have right now, Fred VanVleet, I wouldn't mind if he stayed, just because I see him as a leader and a guy that Ime Udoka and the Rockets can trust. Whereas Dillon Brooks, not to say that they can't trust him, but he's Dillon Brooks, and I'm not going to sit here and make special efforts to keep him on the team. That's not the way that I am going to look at that. So it's really about Jabari Smith Jr. Now, that's not to say that OG Anunoby is not a good player. This guy is fantastic, just 27 years old, going into his age 28 season, averaged 18 points this past year, and I mean, hey, he fits it really, really well. 4.8 rebounds per game, and I like all that he brings to the table, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I believe when he was in Toronto, Fred VanVleet was still there, so could have a bit of a reunion, but don't quote me on that. I may be wrong. I don't know exact timelines of that. However, his field goal percentage is great, three-point percentage is there, but it's really his defense that comes out and really shows how good of a player this guy is, which is something that we'll talk about here later on in the video, but I do want to go more into this report and kind of maybe explaining it more or seeing what the explanation is from Mr. Sim of House of Houston. And it says, quote, It also lets them move on from Jabari Smith, who lost his starting role to Amen Thompson this season. Smith is extension eligible, and instead of giving him a lucrative long-term contract that has the risk of aging into a bad deal, the Rockets add a proven difference maker in Anunoby. This is where I want your opinion on it. He said that it gets Jabari Smith off the payroll. Yes, he is extension eligible. Yeah, he's probably going to want some money because, he is a good player. He would start on most starting fives in the NBA, just not the Houston Rockets, especially when you have Amen Thompson playing the way he did this year. What do you think about this, though? Do you think that Jabari Smith Jr. is a player the Rockets should consider trading, or do you think his value is not being properly portrayed? That's what the question is in this part of the video. Let me know in the comment section. Do you think that Jabari Smith Jr. and his value is being properly portrayed? I'm kind of a little bit saying that they're almost maybe not giving him enough credit. Now, let's continue on, though, because there are a couple other things here, but I do want to talk about Jabari Smith. Again, he's 22 years old. He is so young, and I think in some ways keeping this team young is pretty important to Rafael Stone and to Ime Udoka. Fred VanVleet is the oldest player by far, obviously, but it makes me kind of feel like if you're going to trade Jabari Smith Jr., you might be in the market to make another trade for a KD, a Giannis, which if you make this trade and then go on to make a trade for Kevin Durant or Giannis, you're blowing up your team. And that is something I do not think you should do at all. This is a team that just won 52 games, that is so young, and I'm here for a trade. Keyword A. I don't think there should be more than one because you can make some good signings in NBA free agency, and I do think there is a couple of good things that you can do with the trade market, but I don't believe you should be blowing up your roster for any really sort of reason. Now, he is a good defender in OG Anunoby. Here's to talk about Dillon Brooks. Quote, Brooks has been great for Houston since arriving in free agency, but he is made redundant if Anunoby and Amen Thompson are on this team. An Anunoby-Thompson duo on the wing would immediately be the scariest perimeter defense in the league, end quote. Now, this is where Sim has got it right. This is absolutely one of the scariest duos in the entire NBA right away. So I talked about defensive rating early on in this show. Well, here it is. OG Anunoby had a defensive rating of 114.5 this season. That is absolutely absurd. And just for comparison, you're thinking, okay, Jace, Amen Thompson was a really good defender. He was NBA All-First Team defense. What was his defensive rating? 108.1. Now, the rating isn't always the most accurate way of showing off a player's defensive ability. But the fact of the matter is, OG Anunoby, when you compare him to the Rockets, I would say best defender in Amen Thompson. Well, he's got a better defensive rating this past year. That's something that I think NBA GMs and NBA teams would be scared of. And Rockets are such a big defensive-minded team that I think this works because it's a guy that Ime Udoka can go out there and trust to play defense. And I may be wrong on this, and I say this maybe a little bit too much, but OG seems like an Ime Udoka player. As a very specific guy who's, defensive-oriented, puts his head down and works, and OG Anunoby is that type of guy. So I think that would be a perfect mix with this Houston Rockets lineup. And, who knows? That defense could become one of the best defenses in the entire NBA. Now, I know you're asking, OG Anunoby, was he first team or second team all defense? He was actually neither when I looked it up, funny enough. I swore he was at least second team. He was not. That's why I went to the defensive rating there. So just to put that out there that he was not defensive first or second team. Again, let's go to one more report here from Simia Bolin saying, quote, this trade allows Houston to go after a superstar since it keeps their powder dry in terms of draft picks. By using their draft capital and the salaries of Jalen Green and or Fred VanVleet, Houston can still pursue stars on the trade block. And you already know my opinion about this. I talked about it. If you make this trade, you do not make a second trade. That's not what you do. You don't go out there and say, oh yeah, we're going to go and we're going to trade for Giannis too and blow up this entire roster. Goodbye to Jabari Smith, Dillon Brooks, Fred VanVleet, and Jalen Green. What? No. We're trading. Basically, I'm going to say 4 of our starters because that's what I consider Jabari Smith Jr. to be. Aaron Holiday is also in this. I think he's going to be traded this offseason. I'll just stay with that. So that's kind of my thought. Now it also has to work for both sides. So here is why it will work for the Knicks, saying, quote, for the Knicks, this trade allows them to retool around Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, giving them more depth with 2 quality rotation players. Smith also provides them with another trade chip and a high upside player if they decide to go a different route later on. So that's kind of the tail of the trade there. As the Knicks, it worked for them. The Houston Rockets, that's kind of where it's up to you of, do you think it would work? So, final kind of thought of today, I want to go back here. This is the trade. Again, Houston Rockets receive OG Anunoby and 2 second-round picks. The New York Knicks would receive Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., and Aaron Holiday. Would you accept this trade? Let me know down in the comment section, yes or no. Would you accept the trade right here that you see in front of you? I would. I would. I love Jabari Smith Jr., but OG Anunoby is definitely a guy I'd like. The caveat, though, is if I accept this trade, I'm not going after Kevin Durant, I think. I don't think I'm going to go and blow up my entire roster. In some ways, I would say wait until after the Kevin Durant sweepstakes is over. If the Rockets get him, cool, great. Don't make this trade. If you don't, I think it doesn't hurt. I think it's a good trade. You get a more defensive and a well-tuned player in some aspect. You pair him with Amen Thompson and a guy who could be in a Houston uniform for a long term. He could become kind of the next, I'm not going to say Fred VanVleet, but that's a player where you sign him to a 3-4 year deal and pay him a good amount of money. He stays here and maybe gets a championship with Houston. But that's kind of my opinion on the whole thing. Once again, let's hit that 1,800 subscriber mark. Spurs Digest cannot get away with this one. Just 30 subscribers is all we need. But that does it for me here in H-Town. I appreciate all of your support, and we will see you next time here on Rockets Digest. Peace out.